Hello, welcome back to the Flare Educate series. Just a quick recap. My name is Nevin. I'm an operations manager at Anchor Club, and I'll be hosting these events. Last week, we held two introductory events. Both of those were focused on blockchain in general. The first was a kind of a theoretical overview of what blockchain is, or what EVM is, and what smart contracts are. And then in session number 2, last Wednesday, we covered some basic smart contracts, and we covered some introductory smart contract architecture. Both of those events were held by Flare's own Anthony Madia, who is here once again with us today for a session on tokens and oracles. As we dive deeper into the series, we are moving towards what Flare actually is. So today we're covering tokens and oracles, and then finally 2 days from now on Wednesday, we'll be diving into Flare's FTSO or the Flare time series oracle. But for now, a session by Anthony on tokens and oracles. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat or in the questions tab, and Anthony will get to them later on. And until then, enjoy the session. Anthony, the floor is all yours. Good luck.
Thanks, Nevin. Appreciate it. And so what Nevin mentioned, we covered the basics of blockchains, the EVM, smart contracts, and the basics to get you started and give you a solid foundation. And the previous presentation that we did on Wednesday last week was writing a smart contract. And that smart contract, like I mentioned, was a very, very simple smart contract to help you understand how a smart contract is written, how you deploy it, how you can write a simple test for it. But it was also very basic. Okay, so we're going to introduce tokens and oracles this presentation to talk about what more you can do with smart contracts, what a token is, what an oracle is, etc. And this will help you extend the functionality of smart contracts. So today's presentation is this is some of what I just mentioned. We're extending the capabilities of tokens, expanding the capabilities of smart contracts with tokens and external data. Okay, and tokens, you can think of it as representing a digital asset. Okay, and oracles are bringing data onto the blockchain. So if you remember from the theoretical concepts that I talked about with blockchains, they're a closed environment. Okay, they can't access external data without the help of something called oracles, and that's why they exist. And we're going to focus on how you can use them. And towards the end, of course, we're going to have Q&A, and I'll share with you some resources for you to try a tutorial on your own, or just a tutorial for you to understand ERC20 contracts and a few other standards, ERC20 standards, or ERC standards for you to get started. And this is a brief overview. Won't talk much about this, but this is a basic roadmap for us to follow here. That's going to touch on tokens and oracles. Okay, so let's start with tokens first. You can think of tokens, like I mentioned before, it's a digital representation of a variety of assets that exist on blockchains. They're created and they are managed by smart contracts, by writing your Solidity code. And you can transfer these digital assets between different wallets, okay? And you can represent anything like cryptocurrencies, loyalty points, ownership of shares in a company, digital collectibles, or even in-game items. So you can cover a wide variety of things that you want to represent on a blockchain. You can also think about there's another niche within tokens where you can tokenize real world assets, RWA. But that's a more advanced topic. So you can think about equity in houses as well. You can tokenize. There's a company called Propy, PROPY, that have a project like that, and a few others that are focused on tokenization. Larry Fink at BlackRock talks about tokenization a lot. He's in the financial world, so these are gaining more. It's gained a lot more momentum over the past few years. So ERC20. ERC20 it's a standard that was created coming from the Ethereum EVM, and it's the most widely used standard for creating tokens. And all a standard is, it's not anything complicated. It's defining the rules and the functions that a token contract must implement. So it's defining how you should write your code. And the key characteristics of an ERC20, the first being is that they're fungible. Okay, and fungibility, what that means is that the token is identical and interchangeable with another token of the same type. It's very similar to a $1 bill or €1 bill. Or a peso. You can exchange that dollar or euro for another dollar. Okay, they're interchangeable. They're the same representation of the dollar, and they're commonly used for cryptocurrencies, the ERC20 tokens, utility tokens that can grant access to a certain service, or even governance tokens, which allow holders to vote on proposals. And on the bottom there are some key functions that you'll see, because this is a tradable digital asset. There's going to be a transfer function, balance function, the total supply of the token, and we'll go into this in more depth more detail when I show you a very simple tutorial you can follow. And you don't have to worry about writing too much code for something like an ERC20 or an ERC721 token, which we'll talk about in the next slide, because there are libraries that you can pull this information from, and that makes writing the code for this incredibly easy, which we'll get around to. So the ERC721 tokens you probably heard of NFTs. What the NFTs actually stand for are non-fungible tokens. So that's a contrast to the ERC20 standard, because they are fungible. Okay, so the key difference is that the ERC721, or the NFT, it's unique, and it can't directly be exchanged for the ERC721 token of the same type. Okay, so you can think of them as unique pieces. Some people even call them art. Okay, so on the bottom left here, you have a Bored Ape. That was a very popular NFT project. I think has the most value tied up in them, if I'm up to date on OpenSea stats. And then the bottom right are Milady's. These are sample projects that are NFTs, and people trade these with each other. Think of them like baseball cards or collectibles. And each one of them is unique. They're distinct. They're not the same. And NFTs are used to represent ownership of a specific digital or even physical items, and are very popular with, like I mentioned, art, collectibles, or in-game assets. And it could also be used to prove ownership of real-world items. Okay, so and these are the two most popular standards that I just mentioned to you. You have the ERC20 standard and the ERC721 standard. So that's a bit about the tokens, and we'll go into more detail when I show you a very simple tutorial on how to pull in the libraries. But let's get to oracles here and why they're actually important. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, one of the inherent limitations of blockchains is that smart contracts, by design, cannot directly access data that exists outside the blockchain. If you're familiar with programming, you're familiar with APIs in the Web 2 world. If you're writing some very simple code and you want to query and uh, you know another API to bring data into your program, uh, think of that as a analogy for what we're doing with oracles. We're bringing in data to blockchain, and for the most part, there's a few iterations of oracles. Uh, they're allowing you to act as a bridge for external data to bring into smart contracts. Okay, they're connecting the on-chain world of blockchain with the off-chain real world, allowing smart contracts to react to real-world events and data. And just to give you some examples of use cases for oracles, it's unlocking basically what you can do in the Web 2 world on a Web 3 blockchain. So you have price feeds from stocks, commodities, uh, cryptocurrency prices, which can be used for decentralized financial applications, uh, weather data, prediction markets, uh, decentralized betting platforms like Kalshi is big now, Polymarket is very big, uh, sports scores, random numbers for which is an important oracle to bring on chain because there's no sense of randomness on the blockchain. Uh, and even verifying proof of identity or location, or really any off-chain piece of data that you want to bring on. There's a lot of possibilities. You're only limited by your imagination. So the types of oracles. Before I talk directly about FTSO and Flare, because this is an enshrined oracle on the Flare network, you have many different kinds of oracles. One is it can, you're querying another smart contract service, which is uh, owned by or controlled by a third party. So there's this trust assumption that you have to make, and there's a few other oracles out there. But what Flare did, and one of the main reasons why Flare is unique is it introduces enshrined oracle solution, which is a core component of the Flare network. Okay, and it's a decentralized oracle protocol, which is designed to provide these price feeds for a wide range of assets, from currency data to cryptocurrency price feeds, etc. And it's relying on a network of independent data providers who can stake their Flare tokens um, to provide accurate data. Okay, so the smart contract can directly make a, a call defining a function on with the Solidity code to get a price feed, or to get data in a decentralized way. And remember, I said before, if you go back to if you remember our first presentation, getting being a validator on a network from the consensus algorithms, what Flare did is that a validator that's keeping track of the validity and the order of transactions, it's also providing data. And that's a core innovation that Flare introduces to the blockchain world. And the FTSO, it leverages a sophisticated voting mechanism to aggregate and validate the data from these providers, which is ensuring this reliability, included in what I mentioned before, this economic incentive by staking their Flare tokens. Okay, so it supports over 1,000 data feeds, and we'll talk about FTSO more and how you can use it, I believe, in Wednesday's presentation. But this gives you an idea of what this Oracle is about and how it's different from what you would see in other smart contract providers that rely on this this trust assumption, that trust assumption doesn't exist because it's a decentralized data feed with FTSO. And another powerful, I guess I can call this an oracle as well, is the Flare Data Connector, or FDC. If you look on the docs, you might see it's also state connector. I think we removed that. But what FDC is that it's a trustless data relay system, okay, that is enabling smart contracts to securely access a much broader range of off-chain data sources beyond price feeds, which FTSO is mainly focused on. So it allows you to query other endpoints, bring in diverse information onto blockchains, which is really interesting. We've had bridge issues in the past with blockchains trying to communicate with each other, but FTC is another innovation from Flare that's allowing you, for instance, you can write a smart contract on the Flare network and query information from the Bitcoin blockchain, from the Doge blockchain, from the Ethereum blockchain. Okay, and the way it does this is that FTC is utilizing state connectors, okay, which is unique to Flare, to ensure the trustless verification of that data. Because when you're bringing in information from other chains, you need to make sure or verify that that data is accurate. So some use cases is verifying the off-chain computation from different chains. You can develop this on-chain and off-chain logic, which is unique to Flare. And really, this is only limited by your imagination. And here's an example of how FTC works with this graphic. So you have these requests that are being made. If you follow the users on the side, they're requesting information from the data connector. The data connector goes out, makes an attestation request, and the attestation providers provide that, and the attestation providers are the ones that are getting this information from the other blockchain networks. As you can see, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Doge, XRP, those are the blockchains example blockchains that we can pull data from. So hopefully that gives you a very good framework to keep in mind and how the Flare network is working. So to give you some more context or show you the key differences of the FTSO Oracle and the FTC. FTSO is more, it differs in the data type a bit because it's focusing more on price feeds, but FTC allows you a more diverse data set which you can pull into and use for your smart contracts involving off-chain data. Price feeds, and for FTSO you have more real-time updates, and FTC it's focusing on verifying and bringing in data which doesn't really need an update every 1.8 seconds, which I believe FTSO updates the price feeds for. And you can build different applications, obviously, with the different kinds of data that you're bringing in from FTSO and FTC. So hopefully this gives you a view of, number one, how Flare is different. You know, it's not relying on these third-party oracles that are out there. It's including them in the network in an enshrined oracle, which I'll link you in our article to understand if you want to know more about what enshrined means, which basically means it's built into the network. We talked about oracles here, tokens, and how FTSO and FTC are different. And I'll link these in the chat for everybody. And I'll show you, I'll go to the websites that I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation here to go back to tokens. Here's a good library that you're going to see a lot if you do some smart contract development from OpenZeppelin. And I did make a reference to the functions that you'll see in the ERC20 standard, like getting the token supply, etc. OpenZeppelin does a lot of this for you, okay, by pulling in the OpenZeppelin library and then using this flow here by saying that your contract is ERC20 once you pull in that library. And then that brings in all the functionality that you need to create an ERC20 token. And again, you can see that the functions are here: the balance of transfer, token supply, and I'll when I get back to the chat, I'll drop all of this in the chat for you to look at, and I'll also share with you this article, which is from QuickNode, showing how to create and deploy an ERC20 token. So this would be a good refresher, number one, for you to go over your smart contracts and Solidity code and review deploying and the functions here, creating a token, getting ETH or Flare. We have our own faucets for the test networks as well. And there is another article I'm going to share with you. Give me 2 seconds here. Understanding the enshrined oracle. So this would be good to have for you to have more of a theoretical underpinning. You can read this in your own time about the enshrined oracles that I mentioned to you. Okay, which really at a high level is building this functionality of the FTSO and the FTC directly into the network, and how that's different from other networks like Ethereum, etc. This is a very good beginner level read to introduce you to Flare. And as you can see, you can have more reading on FTSO going to flare.network.com or the Flare Developer Hub, which I'll also share with you. You can read more about FTSO here and FTC to help fill in any dots. And again, the next presentation is going to focus more of a deep dive into FTSO. So that's the focus for next week by going into FTSO. Let me just bring you back here. That's about it. So I'll take some questions if you have any.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Anthony. There already is one question in the chat asking about different types of Chainlink oracles, if you know something about that.
Yeah, so that's probably the most common question we get. You know, how is this different from Chainlink, etc., or the other oracle providers? And the very simple answer is what I ended with that article is that it's not an enshrined oracle. Okay, FTSO is not just an external oracle service, but it's integrated into the Flare blockchain itself. So that means that the data providers or the validators within Flare serve this dual role, which I mentioned, that they're validating transactions and providing this oracle data. And that integration allows for a lot more decentralization and secure data feed. Okay, so you don't have to trust. There's this trust assumption with Chainlink because they're operating as, I believe, a network of. They have a independent decentralized oracle network, and that feeds external data into various blockchains, and that's a very different paradigm shift than what Flare is.
Thank you for answering that. I see that somebody else is asking questions, and everybody else, by the way, why are you thinking of different questions you want to ask? Right now, Anthony's posting a couple of links he was sharing on the slides earlier, so you can click through them at your own pace from the chat. Next, we have a question from Aman. I think Anthony, you can see it. How does the FTSO incentivize data providers to submit accurate and timely data? And the second part is, and what are the rewards mechanisms that are in place?
Yeah, that's a good question. So they're incentivizing the data providers through the Flare token, the native token, and the structured reward system that we have in place. So the reward for data submission is you have this delegation and voting idea where data providers, which are also known as validators, they're staking Flare, and delegators can delegate their Flare to these validators. Okay, so both validators and delegators are rewarded based on the accuracy and the timeliness of the data that they're providing. Okay, so we're going with this economic incentive theory to ensure the behavior of the validators.
All right. Next up, also from Aman, how does the FTSO handle data feed updates in scenarios where multiple data providers submit conflicting information? And what new ideas can we build upon asking the FTSO that is not possible with existing oracles?
I think the data providers, to answer the first question, or they're committing to a price by submitting a hash of their data. So this is preventing them from seeing others' votes before making their own, which could reduce the manipulation. Then you have the reveal phase where validators can reveal their actual data. And this is a two-step process which would ensure submissions are made without prior knowledge of others' inputs. And I think we also have, this is getting more into the actual systems protocol, which I'm not sure if I have an article on that for you there. But the weighted median calculation as well is revealing, after the reveal phase, you calculate that weighted median of all the price submissions. And then the weight is proportional to the amount of flares staked by each validator. Okay, so that approach mitigates the impact of outliers or manipulated data. Okay, so because a small or single or small group of bad actors won't skew the median significantly. So that's built into the systems protocol. Then I think your second question, what ideas can we build upon the FTSO that is not possible with existing oracles? Well, it's one of the pitches for FTSO versus other oracles is that it's decentralized, that you're not making that trust assumption. So if you're building high performance applications that you want to be around for a long time and not be manipulated, Flare is the blockchain to do that. So it's not so much something new, but it's bringing in these data sources that are more reliable and can be around for a longer period of time.
Very cool. I see Aman thumping. Yeah, Aman, can you saying can you list some RFQs?
RFQs. Do you mean proposals for the governance?
Let's see what's being written right now, and yeah, basically like ideas.
I mean, I'll link you to the governance page here, and you can sift through some of the proposals that are listed there. Hopefully that helps you.
All right, thank you very much. And Aman is saying thanks, so that's basically it. Any other questions? Do you have any other questions regarding tokens and oracles or Flare specifically? Going once, going twice. All right, then I think we can slowly wrap this session up. Thank you very much once again, Anthony, for holding the session, and thank you to everybody else for coming in and listening in. Like Anthony said, next Wednesday, or this Wednesday more specifically, in 2 days' time, we are diving into Flare time series Oracle or FTSO in more detail and in more technical detail as well. So be sure to attend that at the same time on Wednesday. Until then, have a lovely rest of your day and see ya soon. All right.
Yeah. Thanks, Evan. I also included my Telegram there if anyone has further questions.
Lovely. See you around and have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.